Body insight is a form of neuromuscular bodywork. What I mean by that is that if you've received a massage, you've received oftentimes what's called Swedish. It's a form of bodywork, but it's more gentle and flowing. When we're talking about bodywork, we're talking about corrective. We're talking about somebody comes in and they have an ache or a pain, or they complain about their shoulder hurting, or they're limping, or whatever is going on. There's something quite obvious in their system where their body isn't working efficiently. What bodywork does is it goes deeply into the muscles and it starts freeing the muscles up. It sort of unglues them. As those muscles become unglued, the pressure that they're exerting onto the joints very subtly changes. As the pressure on the joint changes, so does the movement. If you do it correctly, you can actually correct the imbalance that exists within the movement, and there's all kinds of wonderful side effects. The first side effect is reduction of tension. The second one is reduction of pain. The third one is more efficient movement, and the fourth one is a lot more energy that's not being wasted. So people actually feel more energized when their body is balanced. Body Insight is all about putting back the balance. So the body work, as I talked about, frees the muscles. What happens is it affects how the muscles pull on the joints. And as I talked about before when we're talking about the idea of proprioception, what happens is over time, if you look people standing, you're going to see a whole imbalance. One hip is higher, a knee is locked back, the neck is tight, the shoulders pulled up, all kinds of different things. Well, that's because people's habits over time have become institutionalized. It's like they're doing this thing 24/7. The problem is it's also the source of where their aches or pains are. Because anytime that muscle is overshortened and for whatever reason you reach for something, that muscle gets overstretched, and what happens is that there's micro tears that go onto the muscle and there's a lot of pain that can happen. And that's what people feel. Massage is great because what it can do is it can warm up the muscle. But what it does not do is the neuromuscular part. It does not retrain the muscle. And that's what Body Insight does. It actually retrains the muscle. Because as I was talking about, you put pressure into the muscle, it starts releasing it. It starts sending messages to the joints. And as that goes on, the whole system starts getting a cascading effect that happens. Sometimes after people get up after a session of Body Insight, they feel lightheaded or they feel strange for a period of time. And it's because their muscles are now working in a way that they're not used to. This is the time for us as Body Insight therapists to move into the next step of neuromuscular, which has to do with re-education. It's a real secret about why this work works. In a sense, a person, when the muscles are freed up properly, but they're not used to it yet, are in a place where they're what I call up for adoption. What'll happen is that without any help, they're going to go back into their habits because after all, that's what they remember. Another wonderful part about Body Insight is that the therapists are trained to re-educate the actual movement that goes on inside the person. When that movement is re-educated properly, what will go on is they will no longer put pressure on those joints in the ineffective way because they now are moving more effectively. Does it happen overnight? Maybe sometimes miracles happen, but sometimes it just means that you have to work with that client for a period of time to really help them understand what they have to do exactly. But that's really not a problem because for the most part, if you do the first step, which is where you start freeing up those muscles, people will immediately feel a reduction in pain. They will have an increase in movement, and oftentimes they'll feel much more energized. They will feel better. When they reach that point, they'll want to receive more work from you. They'll be open to the education that you can offer. And Body Insight is a complete method. It's not there just to do a little work and see you later. It's about the whole idea of correcting how the muscles work, correcting the movement, helping the person retrain themselves in such a way that they don't have to have these aches and pains in the future, which is something that clients really love. What's fascinating about it is you would think that we would have less clients, but the reality is that the work works so well that even if you do get somebody to a point where they feel so much better that they don't need to see you at this point in time, they'll tell 10 others. And that's what makes you a very successful therapist. And that's what I'm really interested in when I'm teaching people to become therapists. I don't want you to just do my method because I think it's cool and I know it works. I want you to do it because I know it's going to be instrumental in you becoming a successful therapist, because you will have a tool that will create change quickly. It will be a tool that will pinpoint where people are complaining about the pain. You'll have a tool that also educates them about where it's coming from. I can't tell you how many times somebody that's had a knot in their neck has been wondering, why am I not directly working that immediately? And I'll chuckle and I'll say, well, how many people have worked on your neck? Oh, everybody does. And I'll say, well, how long has that been working for you? And they'll look at me and go, not so well. And I'll say, yeah, because they're not getting the right stuff. So if we can get the right stuff, we do it quickly. What happens is they become very fascinated. When they're fascinated, they want to participate. When they want to participate, they will go the extra yard. They will pay you the money. They will take the time out of their lives because they're getting value.